Hi there. Welcome to The Preventable, the podcast giving you a seat at the table with conversations about the intersection of alcohol, drugs, and mental health in everyday lives. Take a seat and join us.
Hi there. We are back with another episode of what we're calling In the Weeds, because since cannabis was legalized a little over a year ago, we've been getting a ton of questions about how legalization kind of impacts all parts of life and what we're doing to address it. And so this is a time where we just dig in and get in the weeds and find out some answers to your questions, but then also what some other people are doing. With me today is an illustrious trio of guests. From our agency, I have Courtney Hinton, who is a Community Strategist III, which is very fancy, which means he does a lot of things. He'll talk about some of those in a few minutes. Also have Mr. Gerald Watson. He's a repeat guest on here. Courtney is too. You've been on here before.
Woo, woo. Yes,
woo. Okay.
Yes.
Another two-timer is Gerald Watson. He is the executive director of the Fresh Start Community Coalition.
Fresh start.
Whoop, whoop. And first-time guest is Miss Danyeal Crittenden. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Sweet. And she is a member of the Lewis Place Coalition. So if you've been listening to the podcast, and this isn't your first time, you will know that one of the things Prevent+Ed does is we support a ton of community coalitions. I think 28 community coalitions. Right now, we provide technical assistance and support and helping them tackle whatever issue they feel like is important to them. And Fresh Start is a coalition.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise known as a mega coalition. Whatever.
For right now, yes.
Means. Right, exactly. Got a couple more months with that moniker.
Yes.
And then Lewis Place is also a coalition. Courtney, how long has Lewis Place been a registered coalition?
So longer than I've been around. So
okay.
We're going to say at least, I feel, above the 10-year mark, possibly 15.
So y'all aren't newbies at this, huh?
No.
How long have you been involved in the coalition?
At least 3 years.
Really?
Yes.
And you are a resident of Lewis Place.
Correct.
So can you tell folks who don't really know, what is Lewis Place? Like, are there street boundaries? Like, what is that? What makes up Lewis Place?
Lewis Place, Fountain Park. It's two neighborhoods that came together as one. It's a great community. The neighbors, it's like family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all get together and see what we need to build our community and make it better.
And Lewis Place is North City, correct? North St. Louis City. And
yes.
There was and is a lot of generational folks who live there, right? Like
yes,
people who have lived there for a very long time,
yes.
take great pride in their communities. And Pam Talley is the head of the coalition?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. You want to give a 30-second shout out, remind folks what Fresh Start is?
Fresh Start is a community coalition. We provide resources and education to those in need. We do a lot of prevention work. Right now we have a parenting class that's been going on for 3 years, and we have 4 sessions of the parenting class that are almost complete. And as my leader said, we'll be looking for more funding coming up to keep this thing going. So we received a few awards over the time. Mm-hmm. We have a 12-step recovery meeting as well that's been going on for 18 years. We just celebrated 18 years in March. So those are some of the things we're doing. We just want to continue to provide resources for the community.
Awesome. And not going to state the obvious here, but in case people are not watching on video but are listening, you all are members of communities of color, right?
We are.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, exactly. And
Yes.
so one of the reasons why we've asked you all to be here today is because a question that Prevent+Ed gets a lot is cannabis use more prevalent in communities of color? Are there different social norms around how you can talk about cannabis or marijuana or weed in communities of color? How are you all doing with that? when you go out to a fair and you're talking to people, like, do they avoid your table? Like, there's this perception, right, that we have to talk about cannabis with white people differently than we talk about it with people of color. And maybe that's true, but maybe it's not. So I, as a white person, am asking you, how do you talk about it with people that look like you?
Well,
dive in. Come on. This is what people really want to know about.
Well, so as far as talking about it with people of color, I mean, and then you talked about all the things that I just put in this grant: the social norms, the accessibility, how people feel about it being legal now.
Do you think that differs from white people to Black people? Like, do you think there are different social norms? Do you think that there are different perceptions around use? Or do you think it's all kind of a little bit cloudy, pardon the pun?
I would say it's all a little bit cloudy because I can't say everybody does it because I don't do it. However, it's
good
more.
Thing you wouldn't be able to be on this podcast, my friend. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Like you say, it's more socially accepted now, and especially with the legalization. I'd say more. I would say it's more the younger generations now see it as normal thing to do, and I guess
in communities of color or across the board.
I would say across the board. I would say across the board because it doesn't matter where I'm driving. If the window's down, I get that whiff.
Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
What I have experienced, and I wonder if it's similar for you, is when I go into classrooms, there might be more generational use in communities of color, where maybe like somebody's grandma or aunt or somebody like that. Whereas, generalizing, of course, if I am talking to white students, it's more like hidden and more of a rebellious activity.
Yes.
You're agreeing with that?
Both.
I agree with that.
What I'll say is that everyone uses it. People of color, not people of color. It's used everywhere.
Yep.
However, there's more pushback. So when I'm going out into the community and talking to parents and students about what you should not do, what you should consider.
What's healthy versus unhealthy, right?
Here are the harms that are associated with. I get pushed back with a lower perception of harm. So it's natural. It comes out of the earth. My mom, my uncle, brother, etc. has done it for years. They're okay. So it's fine for me to do this in excess or to do it, period.
Right.
And we have to go back and say, well, think about it. So what they've done 10, 20 years ago may be one thing, but now it's a little different. So, and now that it's legalized, legal-ish, we'll say legal-ish. Now that it's legal-ish, we have to be mindful of what we're putting in our bodies overall. So there are different strands that can cause problems down the road if you have, what is the word I'm trying to say? If you have connections with psychoses.
Yeah, like different underlying like mental conditions, whether those are diagnosed or
precisely. Precisely. So so with that said, it's just a matter of just being mindful. In non-communities of color, so basically with white people, I don't get that pushback as much, fortunately, but unfortunately. So and maybe they're afraid to say something to me.
Maybe that
could be the case, but I noticed that, again, like when I'm in St. Louis City, going to events that are in St. Louis City or in North County, I do often get the pushback. Well, I was on this medication over here that costs this much money, and I'm putting all these chemicals in my body that may be more harmful than using cannabis that's growing out of the ground.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of being educated.
I wonder if you feel this way, because I know you do a lot of work with teens, and Lewis Place has a teen summit. To me, it seems like I'm going to say like white media culture, people who use cannabis are kind of like the people who are kind of lazy, kind of slackers. I'm thinking Half-Baked. I'm thinking movies like that, where it's just like the people that are just kind of like kind of checked out. Whereas in Black media, it seems like the people who are typified using cannabis are kind of cool. Like I'm thinking about Friday. I'm thinking about, other movies like that where it's seen as a cooler thing versus with some of the like Half-Baked and movies like that. It's kind of like a stoner cult.
Yes.
It's like a stoner versus like a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So is part of what you all do at Lewis Place is kind of changing that perception with the teens that you're working with?
Yes, and we had a teen summit a few months ago, and we were speaking with the parents and the teens, and majority of both of them said that it's harmful. So we talk about the things that, long term and short term, and just to educate them on marijuana and the side effects that it causes now and later.
Do you think they got something out of the program?
Yes, they did.
Do you plan to do it again?
Yes.
Awesome.
Talk about, excuse me for interrupting.
Go.
Talk about.
Are you trying to take my job,
yes,
Courtney?
I am.
Great. Go. Take my job.
If you would talk a little bit about the campaign, so the PSA campaign that the students were working on, where they were talking about perceptions of harm. They did the video campaign with the students. Remember? Okay. So, in short, what that.
Yeah, go for it.
In short, what that was, there were, with the support of a couple teachers from SLPS who were part of the coalition.
St. Louis Public Schools.
I'm sorry, St. Louis
That's
Public
okay.
School System. We were able to gather, I feel as though it was probably 6 students to learn videography and a couple of other things, and so they were interviewing students and determining perception of harm.
Awesome.
So that from there, they could go out into the community and say, did you know that your peers are thinking this over here, whereas the reality might be this over here. So let's talk about this. Let's bring it to the forefront and talk about the actual harms that are associated with cannabis
what's
use.
reality versus the myths.
Precisely.
Awesome. And so where will these PSAs air, or have they already, or that's kind of TBD?
TBD.
Okay.
I'm still working on some editing, and it was such a hit with the youth that they want to do a 4th campaign.
Ooh, cool.
So I'm excited to see how that pans out.
That's great. Why are you involved in the coalition? Because, for those people that don't know, it's not a paid position. You're volunteering.
Yes.
Why do you do this?
And I'm going to speak on something that's very intimate. And so my mom, I remember I never seen her smoke weed, never. But when she would leave, me and my brother would go in her room and just look around, and I seen her shoebox. I seen her tip-top papers. I seen the little clip, and she started smoking weed, but then she ended up on crack. So I've never did that because I didn't want my kids to feel the way I felt.
Yeah.
And me personally, I think it is the gateway drug. And it just, it's very expensive. It's a very expensive high because you got to keep doing it instead of seeking self and trying to fill your own voids. And now I think about things about my mom. I wonder, what was wrong? What happened? Why did you feel?
Yeah, what were you trying to kind of cope with
Exactly.
or manage?
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that you're trying to do with young people is to build those skills, build that social support network,
Exactly.
create conversations between adults or parents and their teenagers.
Yes, and let them know the effect it caused me and my family.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't realize that you had that experience, and I appreciate you sharing it because that gives you the why behind it.
Exactly.
Right? Gerald, what's your why? Why do you do this?
Why do I do this? Something similar to what Danyeal was saying. I'm going to be celebrating 21 years May 7th.
Woo-woo!
And I know what I put my children through being a crack addict. And in a way, I guess what you were saying is true. The marijuana is the gateway drug because starting marijuana, I had a variety of other things that I've tried, but the cocaine, the crack, is the one that beat me down.
Right.
And as I come back, as Danyeal said, I want to make sure that I get the message out that there is a better way, and make sure that people are educated. You know, just because it's legal, quote unquote, it's not.
It's not necessarily safe.
It does that. Thank you. It does. It has harmful effects, and maybe one of the reasons that I didn't complete my engineering degree because I was high a lot during those times when I should have been studying. However, I don't know how it has affected my brain as of right now, because some people would say, hey, it's nothing wrong with him, but who knows?
Right.
Well, and that's the question, right? Like, we get that all the time. Well, is this drug, like, nobody's overdosed and died from cannabis, so it's not that dangerous. And that is true. And also, you don't know what could be, right? And that's any drug, right? If your brain gets good at what it does a lot of. So if you're soaking it with engineering knowledge and all of these things that you're describing, your brain is going to get really good at that. Yes. If you're soaking it with alcohol or other substances, then that's what your brain gets good at. And we know that the brain can change back, but we also don't know that it ever fully gets 100% healed. Right? I mean, we know that. And so I think what you're speaking is, like, you don't know what could have been.
Correct.
I think what's really great, and I'll just, point it out, is, like, and you all know this to be true, not everybody who smokes weed is going to escalate into other drugs.
That's correct.
Right.
And some people will.
Yes.
And so, especially if they have underlying mental health disorders or if they are struggling with coping strategies, those people are more likely to move to other substances or get deeper into their use. I think it's really great that you all are mouthpieces for your community, because it's very different. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You're received very differently than if I'm going to be talking at your teen summit. It's just true, right? And so what's cool, though, is that you have the lived experience and you look like and live with and near the people that you're trying to talk to. I mean, do you all see how important that is?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Of course. And I was glad to hear that you were so receptive with your teen summit, the participation and everything. One of the things that I was tried to do was get into SLPS, St. Louis Public Schools, one of the high schools. And when I went and interviewed some of the staff and told them about the programs that I was trying to bring in this particular school, the principal told me that over 50, maybe 60% of the students partake, and those who aren't partaking are distributing. So bringing my program in would really not make a difference in that environment, and that struck me real hard, but that didn't discourage me, but it's just that knowing that what's the social norms once again and what's accepted, how to break that ice. But then I look at what you said about the students that were aggressive and want to go in.
Yes.
So it's always going to be that group that want help, that seek help, that don't want to be in the norm, if you would. And those are the people, because if we save one, you don't know who that person is that we save, who might.
And if we influence their life trajectory so that they become more successful than they would have been, or they're able to build generational wealth, or they're whatever is the thing.
Yes.
I mean, that's great.
That's right.
Before I let you all go, because we've been talking about kids, we've been talking about communities of color, but I also want to pivot briefly to this concept of edibles and how I just got a call yesterday, as a matter of fact, from a local news station that said, we've had reports of some more kids overdosing or greening out on cannabis, and they probably just got it from their parents. Okay, first of all, maybe, but that's like younger kids, right, who are just grabbing it because they don't know what it is. if it's a middle or a high school student, you can bet your butt that they knew exactly what they were getting. Yes. They didn't think they were getting a gummy bear and getting an edible. Like, they knew what they were getting, right? And they took it on purpose. Little kids, we have to be worried about poisonings and things like that because it's just way too much THC for their bodies.
That's correct.
But Fresh Start has started doing something, and several of the other coalitions, too, have, where you're talking about safe storage.
Correct.
And we used to just talk about safe storage with prescription drugs. But now coalitions are really moving into the safe storage space around edibles. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I can. Especially,
Thank you.
Especially doing
Thank you, sir.
We practice that especially with our students in our parenting class. We want to make sure that they know the harms done, and that's what I was going to when I lost track last time. Even now, I learned that the brain does not fully develop until the age of 25.
25.
So starting at 11, wow. But anyway, we pass out and we encourage the parents to lock up whatever the kids shouldn't get into. So we pass out locking bags. And
you're not condoning their use. You're not saying don't do it, but you're saying
if you are,
let's
please
make sure
take
we're being
this.
safe about this.
And one of the other things is that one of the parents came into the class with the smell, and we addressed that. And when they graduated, they came to the graduation and walked up and said, "See, you don't smell anything today. You don't smell like." But we tried to encourage them not to do it in confines of your own privates instead of being in the car. So when you get out the car with the children are exposed. So those type of things we try to prevent.
Well, because let's just cut to the chase here. Mm-hmm. If a kiddo of color shows up to school smelling like cannabis, that is probably going to be handled a little bit differently than if a white kid shows up smelling like cannabis. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying that that's one of the things that ends up happening. And we've been working with Children's Division, we've been working with local hospitals on how people of color who test positive for cannabis are treated versus white people of color who test positive for cannabis. Those types of things are handled in our system very differently. You all know this to be true, which is why it's important that, again, we're not condoning use, but we're saying if you're going to do this, be smart about it and be safe about it and protect your kid. Just like when we think back to cigarettes, we would tell people, we prefer you not smoke. We know it's the number one preventable cause of death. If you are going to smoke, crack a friggin' window, right? And if you're going to drink in your home, because that is your prerogative, make sure that your liquor is locked up so that your kids don't have access to it.
That's correct.
People think that cannabis is somehow that much different than other topics. It's really, we just need to treat it like the same kind of, because right now, at least in Missouri, it has become a legal substance above a particular age, just like tobacco products, just like alcohol products. Courtney, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say that it's been taboo for so long. Being Americans, I'm not even going to divide it, just being Americans, and with our American culture, we tend to dive deep into something as soon as it becomes available.
Totally.
And so with that said, add that to your wheelhouse is what I was going to get to. So just take that in. We need to take that into consideration. That lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We just need to be mindful of that.
Yeah. So we as Americans, we kind of dive deep in once something becomes legalized or cool or whatever. We go deep dive.
Then maybe we see the light, but eventually down the road. But we don't want to wait down the road. We want to stop things now.
Correct.
Or rather, curb them now. So
that's prevention.
Right.
Exactly.
That's prevention. Danyeal, close us out. Any final words about? Yeah. Don't look at me like that. I'm putting you on the spot. Any final words about why we do what we do? What's next for Lewis Place Coalition? Other ways people can tap in if they want to get more involved?
Well, I want to start with thanking you for this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. And I just want to say that with Lewis Place, family is first, community. Because if you don't have family, you don't have a community. And I moved there in 2018, and they welcomed me and I mean, people been living there. I'm 50. They've been living there before I was born, and I just love the community and how they care about the children, about the youth, because my daughter sang at the youth summit. She sang Whitney Houston. Yes,
oh my gosh.
Whitney Houston song, The Children Are.
I believe the children are the future.
The greatest love.
Was there a dry eye in the whole house? I bet there wasn't.
It was amazing, and just listening to the words. And it starts with loving yourself. Once we love ourselves, we won't seek for things outside. So we have to heal as a race, and be there for each other.
Right.
And build our community, become the change we want to see. And that's one of my focus. That's one of my mottos. And also, I am tired of accepting the things. It's by Angela Davis. I am tired of accepting the things that I can no longer change, but I am changing the things that I no longer accept.
Oh, wow.
I hope that's right.
I mean, that's close. I'm getting the gist of it. I just got the chills. Yeah.
Yes, I know it's by Angela Davis, but yes, I'm just looking forward to doing things and meeting new families and children, because they are our future.
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you, Courtney, for digging in the weeds with us, because this stuff is complicated, and that's okay. Yes. We get through it by talking and educating folks, and just really thankful for all of the work that you all are doing. So keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the support. Appreciate it.
That's right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us at The Preventable, brought to you ad-free by Prevent+Ed. Prevent+Ed works to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use through education, intervention, and advocacy. Please visit their website at prevented.org. Like what you heard? Rate, review, and subscribe to stay up to date with what we are serving on The Preventable.